is my kind of also kind of perspective too, where it's like if we do focus on the beauty, we can have the strength to kind of face this, because otherwise this becomes very cynical. And it varies like, what's the point of anything if it's, if it's all filled with just evil, but it's actually no, it's this beauty. That's why you fight against the evil, so you can bring apart, and bring a peace and bring that beauty. But if you don't focus on that, it becomes very, very difficult to kind of, motivate yourself. I feel like that's the kind of the crossroad that my generation is at right now, that we have to make a choice over, are we fighting against the evil, we're fighting for the beauty. And you can do both, but it's often it's too much on one side. We just focus on just the negatives, and just because there is a lot of negatives that goes on in the world, it kind of feels like it's all falling onto us. But I feel like that kind of responsibility and that this kind of understanding that comes with our role, and I,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, very true. And that is the part which I refer to the collective metabolizing something, alchemizing something. And this is another responsibility, let's say, that I feel with my art. So besides my own personal healing journey through traumas and everything, I mean, I'm sure you've come across the term collective trauma. So when the majority go through certain traumas, it becomes a collective trauma. And I feel that with images that go out in public, they can provide a certain configuration, a certain architecture that also makes the collective trauma possible to be metabolized, so we can process it to move on. Because if we don't process it, we just go back to the same circles, and also talking about the cognitive influence, um focusing on the negative. I mean, many of the self-development teachers and these new philosophies that we have, if you, and also older philosophers, to solve a problem is very difficult if you remain in the same mindset. You have to come out of that mindset which created that the problem, and then you can offer an interesting solution for it, because otherwise solving a problem from the same mindset that created it just creates a vicious circle. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I feel like that's kind of that's the that collective emotions, and like my next question was going to be about that, the idea of collective emotions. Speak a little bit more about that, because I feel like that's not a concept that most people are kind of aware of. Where can you speak about what that collective trauma comes from, and how do we as a society get over these collective emotions, and how do we heal together? You mentioned paintings, but if you could speak a little bit more about that, that'd be great.
Mhm. Yes, the collective trauma, I think, is a very real thing. And as a person who has traveled a lot, I notice it in societies. I notice when the way people talk, the way people interact, you notice what are the similarities in a certain particular community, and certain things which make people suddenly react with fear. You notice that's coming therefore from a collective trauma. If, for example, uh, every person you meet suddenly reacts with fear because you are a foreigner, or suddenly reacts with fear because, I don't know, you have a different skin color, or you have a different hair type, or a different eye color, I don't know. So these would all come from some collective ideas which have formed a certain blueprint. And that is in fact one colloquium that I took part in last October. It was called Mothers Without Borders: The Phenomenology of Mother's Soft Power in Peace Building. uh, I'm myself not a mother. Fortunately, I haven't had that honor yet. But as a female artist, and as a person who cares towards the younger generations, I do have that sense of mother instinct, let's say, to care. And I do the presentation, therefore, that I gave was about flowering beyond fractures, beyond fractured identities, by growing deeper roots. So another idea that I am exploring via these paintings for the collective is due to the fact that we are living in a very interactive world with internet, with many travels. Many of us are feeling a little bit destabilized regarding, okay, so what's my identity? Am I British? Am I Maltese? Am I Iranian? And that bit of a tension. And so what I'm offering through my experience and through my paintings is that we need to grow deeper roots in our identity as a human. And therefore, surface changes of identities don't destabilize us, don't need to create tensions. If I don't know, if I change the model of my shirt, or if I don't know, change the color of my hair, that shouldn't create so much tension in somebody talking to me. I'm still the same human. So, through these neuroaesthetic, I'm also reviving the idea that we are sharing the same nervous system mechanism as humans. We have, as the creatures of the same earth, So that is where our deeper roots takes. So at that point, it becomes a pleasure for me to learn what do people in Ghana, what has this culture evolved? What can I learn from there? My friend from Nigeria, what has that culture evolved that my culture hasn't evolved? I want to learn from that. I go to Paris, what have the Parisians evolved that I haven't? In Britain, what have they evolved? At that point, it becomes a pleasure to learn from other people because I'm growing as a human there. And I don't need to base my identity only on these surface things that keep changing with the environment, with the haircut, with the hair perm, you know. So that's all part of this collective traumas also. Even when it comes to wars, let's say I met a very nice person who is half Iranian, half Iraqi. And she was sharing with me how it was difficult for her sometimes meeting people from Iraq or meeting people from Iran, because at that time there was a tension between the two countries because they were at war. But she's got two parents from both sides. What do you want her to do? Take sides? you know? And again, that comes down again, deeper roots in our humanity and metabolizing the traumas even of war. If there has been an aggression from the side of another collective in the past, I mean, nobody came and asked my permission for that war, so don't blame me,
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so well said. Thank you for that. That was beautiful and brilliantly said. And I think it's such an important point that I think my generation is struggling with. And I feel like each younger person that kind of grows up in this kind of culture has to make that decision for themselves. Is either you're going to be taken by this collective, emotions that, especially social media, can be amplified, and then your kind of your psyche is affected by all this information, or will you actually go deeper, like you've said, and meet the human beings where they are, and speak to people and learn about culture, and then open your heart out to that, you said that so beautifully. On that also, what would you say to a young person about how to go deeper into their humanity? If they're kind of making their identity now as they get older, they're figuring out, okay, I don't want to be part of that collective emotion. I want to go away from that. How do they go about going deeper into their humanity?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. I think there are different ways. I think becoming familiar with the other cultures, the way they reason, the way they think, that brings us into an understanding. The poets, read the poets of the other countries, read the stories, the fairy tales that they have made for the children. That is where our common humanity comes in. Have a look at what the artists have created, and that I think that again brings the artists into the picture, because they are not so much interested in defending national borders or something. They are interested in making a connection with the other humans. And I think another way of digging into the deeper roots is discovering also themselves, connecting to themselves in terms of what are genuinely my capacities, what are my capabilities, what is my unique combination. We all have a very unique thumbprint, which means we are literally, every person is a very unique combination of capacities, and that uniqueness is the very contribution to the world. Nobody literally can substitute you, because you are a unique combination. And so it's by being who you are that the world is going to benefit from you being alive and being with us here. And I think there is also a lot of deepening of roots there, and yeah, trying to hear the hearts of other people. And I think the fact that every being has a dignity, and I think our dignity is another unifying factor for this deeper roots. And I think most of the people are really trying to do their best, but we have limitations, and due to the limitations we make mistakes. The violent wars are a mistake. They are, and that's what also brought me to be able in a way to forgive those who maybe killed some members of family and everything, because I just see them as humans who got stuck in their lives, not knowing how to move forward and hear the sun singing with the flute. They miss that.
That's such a beautiful, beautiful point of view. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So yeah, I think those are different ways, and I do find the science one element of growing roots, and that's why I appreciate academics' works very much, because academics, universities are all obliged to share knowledge. What did you find in this field? What did you find in that field? And that is also part of our deep humanity. If somebody something in physics, all the other universities in the world are gonna gather that information. So and that's why I'm glad that I've been cooperating with academics, because they are after knowledge.
Absolutely, that's beautiful, and I think I completely agree with everything you said. You mentioned like look at the poets, and straight away it reminded me of Rumi. One of these beautiful poetry. We talked about this before. His quote, "I bought you a mirror. Look at yourself and remember me." His kind of poetry is like that is beautiful.
Yes, so that poem that you just mentioned is one that I often cite when exhibiting somewhere. I tell people, as Rumi said, I've looked so long to bring a gift for you, but what is the use of taking gold to the gold mine? And what is the use of taking the spice to the Orient? And what is the use of giving you my heart and soul? Because you already have a heart and soul. So I have brought you a mirror. Look at yourself and remember me. Look at your own beauty and remember me.
So beautiful. Oh my God. So, so good. Okay, on that point, actually, I wanted to end by just talking about some of your favorite pieces, some of your kind of pieces that you've done, some paintings that you've done that serve as a mirror for you, but also for kind of like the collective unconscious. Can you speak about some pieces that I know it's very, very hard to pick one or a few, but yeah, just a few that have a special place in your heart because of what they meant to you or because of how they kind of connected with the audiences.